Okay, we weren't a very powerful group, but we were very vocal. So we got a lot of stuff written down. I hope some of you can read this, but we asked ourselves the first question, okay, let's say we start this book today. What would we call success in 5 years? What outcomes would we like to see on the ground? If we cannot come up with that, then the rest is noise. So we came across, okay, we should have a demonstrated increase in collaborations, partnerships is the preferred language around here. We should have, and one thing that came up very interestingly enough is that, at least in the energy sector, there are very disparate constituencies, and very often they do not communicate with each other. So if there are things we can do to make, for example, the generation folks talk to the consumption folks and the distribution folks, that would be a huge accomplishment. Those networks do not exist correctly. And there is, of course, a tremendous value in that data and that information getting across. Another thing that came across was there are opportunities for unconventional data usage. Could one use, for example, construction data to do something with energy usage? Could one optimize traffic flow to minimize energy? So there's a lot of interesting opportunities, which will, of course, perhaps be more in the research space, but that's another one. Supporting evidence and data-driven energy policy. So energy policy is constantly being formulated, mostly in a vacuum. Could we show that we are actually impacting energy policy formulation? So those were some of the outcomes, advancing the resolution of high-resolution data. You have data on everything now from sockets upwards. Not a lot of it is being used. Could we show some of that use? So these are some of the outcomes that we'd like to see in 5 years if the spoke is successful. Then we started going back to Kathy's questions. First was the societal challenges. Of course, we want energy to be available. What can we do from a data science point of view to guarantee that? It has to be accessible. Reliability, resiliency, what happens when parts of the grid, parts of the generation go down? Can we recover quickly? Sustainability, of course, is a huge, huge focus right now. Data-driven policy will hopefully promote sustainability. And of course, ultimately, attracting good professionals to this domain. There's always a need for good people. So post-workshop, what we want to do, there is going to be a workshop. The dates and times are being thought through. Even before that, we wanted a quick retreat because we have a proposal in the works, as they say. And another thing that we do want to do rather quickly is to create a roster of data scientists who are engaged in energy-related aspects and make that available. There seems to be a huge gap in people who are practicing these professions and the people who need these skill sets. Partnerships, we asked the 3 questions: who, why, and ultimately the one that matters, what's in it for me? There is a tremendous demand for data scientists, but they could go to finance. Why would they come to energy? So that's the kind of question we'd like to get answered better as we go along. But there is a tremendous amount of private and public interest in this domain. So I think we should be able to connect these 3 questions up nicely. Resources and sharing, this got very interesting conversation. What can the hub provide? What will the spokes provide? And then we decided to come up with what are the spikes in this relationship. So what do you mean by a spike? There are going to be opportunities where the hubs and spokes get along absolutely fine, complement each other beautifully, and that's a great thing to happen. There are also going to be a few things where we won't quite do the same. We'll go the other way, the pitfalls. It's good to talk about them before, not after. So we looked at things that we think the hub and spoke can work very beautifully together. Education connector made some good points, base education. If we have professionals that need to learn basic machine learning, I don't think that's something the spoke should do. That's a great spike. We get along great. Now, let's say Kathy and I decide that we will not talk to each other anymore. And that's a problem. That's a pitfall. So these are incomplete communication, ineffective communication. There's a lot of issues like this we talked about. Some we captured, some we didn't. The ethics folks came in and kind of distracted us a bit. But ultimately, I think they made our conversation a lot better, because there were things they brought up which we would never have talked about. So we did talk about our proposal to this point. It certainly needs a lot more resolution and focus compared to what we have now, but that's what the retreat's going to be all about. We started talking about cross-hub issues, but really lacked the information to have a good conversation about that. So that we look forward to having more communication from the hub. Thank you.